Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to Master Negotiators Live. I am your host, Jay Raitt. I'm an associate professor of management at McGill University, where I teach negotiation and conflict resolution. So what can you expect with Master Negotiators Live? Every week, I bring in two negotiation experts, and they come from sales, procurement, management, mediation, arbitration, law enforcement, you name it. And Master Negotiators is all about the how-to of negotiation. So we don't really talk about fluff. We just give you practical advice that you can use in your everyday life. The show includes 3 segments. The first one is Master Negotiators Tactics, which is basically negotiation improv. The second one is Master Negotiators React, where we comment on negotiation caught on camera. And the last one is called Master Negotiators Q&A, where we answer questions that people ask on Reddit. So please type in the chat where you're coming from so we can know who you are, where you're coming from. And if you hear a code that you're interested in, post it on your profile, and you can just link to the event description because the whole video will be part of it. So let's start with Master Negotiator Tactics, and I will introduce my 2 guests. All right, everybody. So in this segment, we focus on practical role-playing. So I will use a deck of cards that I have designed for my negotiation class, and it's a conversation starter. Each card features a negotiation situation, and your task is to role-play how you'd approach the situation. So it's all about demonstrating practical negotiation tactics. If you're in the chat, you can play as well. I'll read out the best strategies. And so today I have 2 experts coming from the world of negotiation. The first one is Giuseppe Conti. He's the founder of CABL, a firm that offers customized training in the field of negotiation, influencing, and related areas. He has taught in all of the top 10 business schools in Europe, and in 2024, he was ranked number 3 among the top 30 global gurus for negotiation. Hello, Giuseppe.
Hello, Jan. Nice to be with you for the show.
Thank you, and congratulations on the top 3.
Thank you.
And so, by the way, Giuseppe has a workshop in June on persuasion and influence, and the link is in the event description. It's an in-person workshop in Switzerland, and you have people from all over the world who go there. So go into the link and you can learn more about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. My second guest is Jeremy Polak, who is a social organizational psychologist specializing in workplace conflict resolution and peace building. He is the author of the Conflict Resolution Playbook and of a new book that just came out last week, Peaceful Leadership. He also hosts a weekly podcast called Peace Building with Dr. Polak, where he takes live callers with workplace conflicts and coaches them towards actionable solution. Hello, Jeremy.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for making time for us. And so Jeremy very nicely will give away today 1 copy of his new book. And to be considered for this, you have to comment during the show, and we will randomly select someone at the end of the show. So maybe let's start with just a very quick question, and let's start with Giuseppe. What brought you to the world of negotiation? And even more importantly, what keeps you interested about it?
Well, I started in procurement. Let's say I was an engineer as a study, and I realized that the technical side was not what I wanted, and I ended up moving into procurement. And negotiation was an important part of my job because my first job was in the buying plastics, where there are monthly negotiations. So I was negotiating all the time in my job. I enjoyed it. I started to learn. I wanted to discover more. And I realized that it was really my passion, and ended up making my job out of it. And then, what keeps me interested also, is maybe the fact that I have the opportunity to share it with so many interesting people across the world. I have counted 145 nationalities.
Wow.
That I had in my workshop. And I come from a family of teachers because my father was a teacher, my mother a teacher, my first sister a teacher, my second sister a teacher, my third sister a teacher. So somehow, we have it in our DNA that we love this.
That's amazing. Thank you, Giuseppe. What about you, Jeremy? What brought you to the world of negotiation, and what keeps you interested about it?
Well, I started out as a martial artist and was teaching self-defense at law enforcement, military, and civilians. And then I started realizing that, I wanted to also teach and get into some of the psychology behind de-escalation. And, there's negotiation as a large part of that. So that, maybe I can head off some potential, physical defense situations. And so that got me interested in it. And then I started exploring it from an academic lens and doing it in my work and creating a consultancy around negotiation, conflict resolution. And what keeps me interested in is I think, I think we negotiate multiple times a day, every day, in all kinds of ways with everybody that we know. So everything almost can be looked at through a lens of some sort of negotiation. We're trying to get people's needs met, our own needs met, and figure out how to get along with people and have relationships where everybody's needs are getting met in some way.
And so your new book, Peaceful Leadership, who is it for? Who did you write it for?
That's mostly for leaders in organizations, and that's really for organizations of any kind, any human system. It could be an organization, a company, a for-profit, a nonprofit. It's also for government, potentially military, community-based, and even I would say heads of households, people that run their families, that leaders in their family systems. So anybody that's really in a kind of leadership position in a system of human beings, it could help.
Amazing. Okay, so let's get started with the scenarios that I've selected today. And so let's take the first one, which is negotiate an equipment upgrade with your manager. And so imagine, you have a piece of equipment, it works, but you're trying to get it upgraded. How do you approach your manager to convince him or her, to convince them that you want to upgrade it? Maybe Giuseppe, do you want to go first?
Well, first thing that comes into my mind is, of course, talk about what's in it for them. So
Right.
assuming that I have, an old iPhone that gets blocked on a regular basis, or that, enables me to do, it doesn't enable me to do certain things, then I will be talking about, listen, my productivity is limited. I am not able to perform such and such task. In this, as a result, I'm able to do less things. I'm not able to connect when I am abroad or whatever, or the update takes me 45 minutes and I'm not able to, to be connected during this time. And then I light, it's probably in their best interest to give me a new version.
Amazing. Thank you. What about you, Jeremy? How would you approach that?
I might say, do you want me to role play it or do you want me to talk about it?
Let's do a role play. Let's do a role play. I'm your manager.
Okay, Jane. So, it's an equipment upgrade. So, Jane, I would ask. First off, I'm looking at this piece of equipment. I'd like to potentially discuss an upgrade. How do you think the equipment's working currently? Do you see any issues with it, or do you see any effective or efficiency issues with it?
No, I think it's fine. I think it works fine.
Okay, so you're thinking it's working fine. Okay, so I have some data here that from me and from some of my workers on the floor, and we've been looking at this, and we think that actually by upgrading it to this new piece of software, and it'll probably cost us about $2,000 for the year. It's actually going to increase efficiency by about tenfold, and so I think in the end we're going to see a net. I would think at about $8,000 if we, and I know it's an upfront cost, but we will see a net on the sort of back end. So if we can increase it by tenfold at a $2,000 cost, do you think that that's worth it?
Yeah, I think it's worth it. So I really like this approach, and I think for both of you guys, I think what's really important for the audience is you guys are managing to align both your needs and your manager's needs, because I think a lot of times people get nervous about asking for an upgrade because they worry they're going to look greedy or they're going to look unreasonable or all that kind of stuff. But you're really framing it as, look, I'm helping you. Like, this is not me being greedy. This is me helping you. And so I really like that. It's really good. Okay, so now let's think about another one, which is you have a project and you need to negotiate a 3-month sabbatical leave with your manager. And so it's a pretty tricky one, right? Because, your manager is counting on you and you decide that whatever project you have, you're going to have to leave for 3 months. So Giuseppe, do you want to go first?
Well, yes. Now, in this kind of situation, I think probably there is a problem from my side if I didn't make the boss aware about the sabbatical. Because one
Right.
of the things that you want to do is condition your boss up
Right.
front. So you don't
So
want
they
to
have
come
to
as a
know.
surprise and say, sorry, you gave me a project, by the way, now I want to disappear. So one of the things that I will be doing is I will keep mentioning, hey, I've been with the company for 5 years. I know that I have the right for a sabbatical. I just want you to be aware that this is coming up, or etc. Then then whatever, or maybe even if it's not a company policy, then I will be saying, as you know, I do have this personal project. We have. For the 25-year anniversary of my marriage, we plan
Right.
to go out for 3 months, whatever, so that somehow it doesn't come as a surprise. I think anticipation is probably the thing that I will be using to make sure that when the request comes, is not a surprise.
Right. So that the person doesn't feel like you waited until the last minute to do that.
Yeah.
Very good. What about you, Jeremy? How would you approach that situation?
So just to be clear, I'm assigned to a project, but I want to take a sabbatical from the project.
No, so you're just working
Okay. There's a
regularly.
project I want to do, and I want to take a
Yeah,
sabbatical to do the project.
it could be a trip, could be anything.
Okay. So I'd love, Jana, I'd like to sit down with you. Just one thing that really attracted me to this company is the culture that you and the other leaders have built. And one of the things that you've really stressed to us is personal growth and personal development. That's something that really attracted me to the company. And in that vein, I have identified a project that I'd like to do, and it's going to take me about 3 months. And I know this is a big ask, but it would require me to take a sabbatical for 3 months. I'd love to do it. It would be really important to me. So I'm curious how that sits with you. Tell me some of your concerns about me taking off for 3 months, and let's see if we can work out some of the solutions to make sure that I'm not leaving you in the lurch at the same time.
Right. So we have big client X that you've been working with, and it's a very long-term project. Who's going to take over that when you're gone?
Yeah, really good question. I've been thinking about that. And the thing is, so I have been training Andrew on my team, and he's been in touch with them. And I actually kind of floated the idea to Amy, who's our direct contact over there, and said, hey, if Drew took over sort of your direct point of contact for a few months, how would that sit with you? They're actually okay with it. So it seems like the client would be okay with it. I haven't really said this formally to them. I wanted to talk to you first, of course, but Drew's doing great. And also I'll be available if Drew has any questions or anything comes up. Like, I'm not going to just disappear, but yeah, see, that's a valid concern. And I've been thinking about how to address that. I think I've found a solution. So I would just say, would you be open to trying this?
Right. I really like how you guys framed it. So I run a lot of simulations, negotiation simulations. And last weekend, I was actually hosting the McGill des Hotels negotiation competition. And I was running a simulation with all the participants that's called Tech Soil. And it's a simulation where it's two people who are managing a gas station. They want to leave for like a 2-year vacation, like a 2-year around the world trip, because they've been working for a lot and they just want to sell their gas station and go for a trip. And something that I had noticed, and it's consistently, is that in so many of these negotiations, the couple just talks about selling the gas station, but never mentions the trip. And they never mention the trip because they worry that people are going to judge them negatively. It's going to sound like they're lazy or all that kind of stuff. But what I'm getting from what you both are saying is, if you're going to bring in a problem, you need to bring in also a solution. So if you're going to say, I'm leaving for 3 months, but here is how this will be managed while I'm away, then it's much more likely that the person will accept it.
Yeah, if I can think of some of the objections before I even bring it up and have solutions to those objections, even better.
Yeah. So we have a question. Just curious if we keep on using let me see, this nice, I care for the company, I care for you approach, and then asking for what I want, could that become expected to the other party and become less useful over time? And so I'm not sure, like maybe Cameron, do you guys understand the question? I'm not sure I understand.
I think what he's asking is, if you come at them with, listen, I really care about the company, I care about the mission, et cetera, and then I bring up my thing. In the future, if I do that again, is that going to start feeling like I'm just kind of setting up an ask rather than?
That's a really good point.
And so,
in fact, so it's kind of like also corporate speech, right? Like in the video we're going to comment later, it's a little bit of what's going on in the beginning, where it's words that sound like you care, but do you really care? Like, I understand. Yeah,
I would suggest that, the more positive feedback or positive reinforcement, the better. So if the only time you ever hear positive stuff from me is when I make an ask, sure, that's going to get old. But if I'm regularly giving you positive reinforcement, positive feedback without the ask, and then once in a while I give an ask, then it's a little bit different.
And it sounds also that it's all about the relationship. Like you need to have a good relationship with the person, and then, they can trust you on that. Okay, and so now we have the last card. And so the last card is a complication card, and it's the other party can be emotional. So how do you manage somebody when you have a tough conversation ahead and you know that they tend to become emotional? So Giuseppe, what would be your strategy?
I think, first thing we have to understand whether there is a genuine emotion or a tactic, right? People may have a tendency to get upset. Okay, that's their character, or some people may use it as a way to put pressure. So right. I guess, the two require for two different approach. Now, assume it is a genuine display of emotion because they care a lot about the matter. For instance, when you're negotiating with entrepreneurs and it's really their company at stake, whatever, then, you're more likely to get strong emotion rather than when you talk with employees. Then I think, the first thing you want to do is remain calm yourself. Right, yeah. Because if you then start, to get yourself also upset because they start shouting at you, you shout at them, then that's disaster. So, find a way to remain calm. Maybe you breathe deeply, you count to 10, maybe you anticipate already that this may happen because you know that this is the kind of person that gets emotional, so that you can better manage. Maybe you recognize the body sign that you're losing control, whether it's tension on the shoulder, a faster heartbeat, sweating palms or whatever. The first thing, you remain calm. The second, you find a way to make them calmer. And in such a way, then it will be, acknowledging, listening, finding, the common element where you agree with them, even if you disagree with all the rest.
Amazing.
And only later you move to,
right.
Question another way that will move things forward.
Thank you, Giuseppe. What about you, Jeremy? How would you approach somebody who can be emotional?
Yeah, I mean, this I was just in a situation like this with a client, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. So number one, I love what Giuseppe said, which was stay calm yourself. And also, I think, stay empathetic on some level, what's really going on for this person. So what I tend to do would be, I'm going to just put my agenda aside for a second. We might get back to it, but I want to just pause for a second, just ask like, okay, what's going on for you right now?
Yeah.
Like, tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're experiencing. What are some of your fears or concerns about what's about to go on? Let them talk, let them vent. And then I can maybe address them and do some reassurance. That usually people need some reassurance of like, okay, you're not getting fired. You're not going to get reprimanded. That's not what this is about. We're not making this change because you did something wrong. We're making this change because it's operationally, it makes more sense. It's not about you at all. In fact, I think you're great. I think you're doing excellent. So that's number one. The second part is anytime especially when I'm working with someone who I know can get a little bit defensive or emotional, I'm going to find some way to give them as much agency as possible in the decision or the thing that I'm giving them. So if I've already made a decision to make some change and it's going to make them emotional or to whatever that is, I'm going to try to find somewhere in that decision where I can also give them some control, give them some power. Say, here's what we want to do. Within that framework, there's a couple of options. What would you prefer? Because the more people feel agency, usually the less defensive they feel, and they feel a little bit more reassured, a little bit more steady.
No, that's very, very powerful. Thank you. And I guess to add on to what you guys have been saying, which I really agree with, I think I would try to get the person to see the bigger picture. A lot of times, when they're getting very nervous or angry or emotional, it's because they're so laser focused on one thing. And I can see, I have hundreds of students a year. Sometimes I have to give poor grades. And I see that, sometimes people request a meeting and then they're very, very emotional. And so I have to explain to them, like, look, this is one grade for one class, for one semester, like it's not the end of the world. But I feel sometimes that's how it feels, it feels like the end of the world for them. And so you have to, like, what I really enjoyed also, Jeremy, about what you were saying is to ask the person what's going on for them right now. Like, how are you feeling? What are you experiencing? Because at the end of the day, if it's like some sort of a hurricane in their head, and they're just escalating, you have to know about it.
Yeah, there's a story they're telling themselves. And so the question is, what is that story? And is it true? And if it's not true, then how can I help course correct and give them the truth?
Yeah, I agree. I think we all have a story we're telling ourselves, when things are happening, because we don't know why people are doing what they're doing. So we assume. But yeah, we all have a story. I see this with my students all the time. They worry. They consistently worry about the same things. It's, they're going to think I'm unreasonable. They're going to think I'm greedy. They're going to think I'm an idiot. They're going to start yelling at me. Like, all that. It's always kind of like the same things. And I think we acquire that as children, and then we just grow with it. We just make these assumptions.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, you guys. So this is it for this segment. Thank you so much for your insights. If you're joining us, please go follow them on LinkedIn. If you haven't done so already, I also added links for Jeremy's new book and Giuseppe's upcoming training. So let me play the jingle, and then we will do the second part of the show, which is called Master Negotiators React. Thank you so much, you guys. All right, everybody, welcome to Master Negotiators React, where expert negotiators review a negotiation that is captured on video. So a lot of negotiations happen behind closed doors, but now people, because they work from home a lot of times, they can film themselves having a negotiation with their employer, for example. So we've reviewed over the past few weeks a lot of people who record themselves getting fired, which is very interesting because we typically don't see how that goes. Did you guys hear about the woman from Cloudflare who got fired a couple of months ago? She really made like the news for it. Right. So we actually reacted to this last week, and it's really a disaster when you think about it, how it unfolded. It was terrible. But this week, we're going to see how a woman actually was filming herself getting fired from her job at Indeed. And so I'll share the video in a second. But first, if you're joining us, I'm going to introduce my two guests. My first guest is Giuseppe Conti. He's the founder of CABL, a firm that offers customized training in the fields of negotiation, influence, and related areas. He has taught in all of the top 10 business schools in Europe. And in 2024, he was ranked number 3 among the top 30 global gurus for negotiation. Hello, Giuseppe.
Hello, Jane. Happy to be with you.
Thank you for making time for us. And so he has a workshop in June on persuasion and influence. It's an in-person workshop, and the link is in the description. Jeremy Polak is my second guest. He's a social organizational psychologist specializing in workplace conflict resolution and peace building. He is the author of the Conflict Resolution Playbook, and he has a new book that came out last week that's called Peaceful Leadership. He also hosts a weekly podcast called Peace Building with Dr. Polak, where he takes live callers with workplace conflicts and coaches them toward actionable solutions. Hello, Jeremy.
Hi, Jan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. And so Jeremy very nicely has accepted to give away one version of his new book, a Kindle version. And so if you comment during the show, you'll be considered for the raffle. So I am going to share this video. It's a pretty short video. It's just 3 minutes, but it's a woman has been documenting her experience getting fired by the company Indeed. Let me just share my screen. All right, so I will play the video, and then we will stop it at various moments.
Watch me get laid off from my job at Indeed.
Incredibly hard financially and emotionally. We anticipate we will be letting approximately 2,200 people go.
Understand the severance package and everything that you'll have available to you, but your last day of employment will be today. You'll have access to internal Slack and email until midnight on Sunday. That's up to you if you'd like to share with folks. I want to say that I am so thankful for all the work that you have done here, and I'm very, very sorry about this.
Okay. So very, very different tone from the video from Cloudflare. That was very, very different because it seems like it's her manager directly firing her and not just HR that she has never met. I'm very interested in hearing what you guys think. The very first segment we hear was from the CEO, who seemed to be pretty emotionally impacted by that. Do you think it's the right approach to do that? How do you think they should be announcing that kind of stuff to employees? Maybe Jeremy, do you want to go first?
I don't disagree with that approach. I think having the CEO make an announcement that it'll impact, it's like we're not singling certain people out because you did a bad job, but we're kind of basically laying people off. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for the company. I think that's a good approach. There's no easy way to let people go, unfortunately. And so this is not a bad approach. And I especially like if it's a direct manager, direct supervisor, talking to her and letting her go, and they have a relationship and knowing that, hey, this is not something that I want. We have no choice. Essentially, it's tough. It's not easy to let people go.
What do you think, Giuseppe?
Well, I went through this myself, to be honest, because before becoming a professor, I've been working in a corporate environment for over 25 years. And like Jeremy was saying, there is not an easy way to do it. Whatever happens, the emotional is difficult to live, especially the first time, then, if it happen another time, then you say, okay, this kind of things happen. But the first thing, if I look at this young woman over there, then, for her, it must be difficult to take. Because of course, the self-doubt start coming in. Why I am among the 2,200 people that were made redundant? I thought I was a good employee. Maybe I did something wrong, etc., etc. And so probably having some help is something that is important. Also, it's something. And by the way, when it happened to me, I was so ashamed, in the Italian culture, being fired, it doesn't happen very often. While in Switzerland, there is a reorganization every 6 months, and just, a division may be sold, disappears, cut in a different way, and that's pretty normal. But I was ashamed to mention it to other people because I said, maybe I did something wrong, etc. So, emotionally not easy to live.
Yeah. It's a different, it's something that's very difficult emotionally. I think what I'm enjoying more about this one compared to the one from Cloudflare is in this video, the manager is actually doing the firing. And I think it's a lot better. It's a lot more respectful for the employee, in my opinion. So I really enjoy that a lot. And it's kind of like the same type of firing that happened at Cloudflare, where basically they just decided to fire a bunch of people, and that's kind of like how it goes, right? It's not personal, but that's how they do it. But still, I think it's still very hard emotionally to do that. I remember I used to work in a summer camp, and I was director of boys the last year I was there, and it was 150 staffers. It was massive. And I had to fire one day 15 people like at once. And the reason for that is because they had been drinking on camp property, which is illegal. You can't do that. And especially a bunch of them were underage. And so just couldn't do that. But I remember being very emotional about it. And it was just not going well. Like, I feel like they expected me to be not emotional about it, because at the end of the day, I was firing them, so why am I the emotional one? I don't know. the emotions from the guy at the beginning seemed a bit contrived, you know, like he's the CEO, he's not getting fired. Like, why are you pretending to be sad, you know?
Who knows? Maybe he really is sad. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a tough thing to do. So, I mean, you know, because hopefully he knows he's impacting people. I mean, firing for cause is different than letting than letting people go. Firing for cause, you've got a reason. You know, it's a little bit, I don't know, more clean cut. This one is like, why me, right? Like, why am I one of the 2,200? And it's scary because it's like, now what am I going to do? And, you know, how am I going to build a team again? And, you know, where am I going to land? And are they going to have the same kind of culture that I fit with? And there's a lot of fears in there. So, I mean, anything that a company can do to help bridge that gap, severance is certainly a good thing. But then also like, hey, I'll write you a great recommendation. Hey, you tell me who you need a referral to, and I will make they can call me. I'll give you a reference. Like anything I can do to help. You know, you're not in this alone. I'm still here if you need me. Kind of thing.
Yeah, I something also that I like compared to the one from Cloudflare is they're not trying to prevent her from experiencing pain or sadness. Like they understand that it's sad. Like they're not telling her like, oh, I wish you didn't feel sad. Like they know she's going to feel sad and they know it's going to be a painful process and they're just going to go through it. But yeah, even if it's not personal, I'm sure, I mean, I would feel that it's personal, you know, I would feel that, you know, why are they firing me? Like I would have all sorts of questions, right? Why are they firing me and not this person? So let's see how they approach it.
It's very difficult, I'm sure, but you're a very valued person, and this decision has nothing to do with you personally. So I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate all the work you've done. It's great to see you grow and grow as well, and I really hope that in the future we can connect one day. But there is, you know, a significant amount of employees obviously impacted by this across the board and every level. So I think that's the shock more so.
Because I definitely feel like
me too.
I definitely feel like I grew a lot here. So
I do too. I think it was a great beginning of your career, but you got a lot more to do. So you'll be okay. I know you will be.
It's not personal because they don't consider personal things. It was like very tactical with like a location based, I'm thinking is what it was. But
and then I will get you everything I have due, you know, next week.
So this is a very, very big difference from all of the other episodes we've done on the show, because all the other ones are typically a train wreck. Like it's typically management being really, really heartless and sometimes a bit ridiculous. But I wanted to show you guys this one because it's very human. It seems to be very organic. Like, what do you think of this approach? Maybe Giuseppe, do you want to go?
I think, you know, it looks fair. It looks fair and reasonable to me, right? You know, that's the way it should be. Then, as much as possible, if you can make it personal, that's even better, right? You know, in the sense that not only saying, okay, well, yeah, you didn't do anything wrong, but actually even say, well, actually, I appreciated, for instance, the specific things that you have done and the specific things that you have done, and your evaluation was good, and something somehow that it really talks about, you know, the individual and not generic. Also, maybe some quality that you appreciated in the individual, so that will make the message even more personalized.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeremy, about this approach?
I mean, I think it's the best. I don't know. I think it's one of the better ways to go about it. You know, when you're letting someone go, it's like you're breaking up with someone, you know, and you're kind of saying this isn't because something's wrong with you or you're invaluable. You're an amazing person. You've got a lot to give. So, you know, you're going to find the best place for you, the best person, whatever that is. It's just not a right fit here, or I'm like, it's in this case, it's like I'm not ready for this relationship. Essentially, like we don't have this position for you anymore. If we did, you would be the one, but we just don't have the position. So, you know, you're going to be great. You're at the beginning of your career. You have so much value. I know you're going to be okay, and I'm here for you as you move to make your next move. If you need reference, if you need advice, you can always call me. You're not alone, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting aspects, and I think one of the better things compared to the Cloudflare video, is they're not trying to put the blame on her. They're very, very clear that this is just a decision that was made. It's a workforce reduction. And so you were selected geographically, because in the Cloudflare one, they try to say, HR didn't know who that person was. And they said, oh, it's because of performance issues. And then basically they had like a 10-minute conversation on why it makes no sense, because they opened the door about your performance is shitty. And then she was saying, dude, I arrived 3 months ago. Like, what are you talking about? Measuring my performance. And the woman was even saying, like, look, if you're firing me for no reason, just say it. Like, don't try to bring it for like performance issues. But what I like here is they're basically firing her for no reason, right? Which is just a geographic or whatever it is. And they're not trying to put the blame on her. They're just saying like, we're sad, but that's what it is. Like, they're not trying to lessen the blow. They're not trying to make it seem it's her fault. I find like the both managers we heard were pretty brave. They're not shying away from this uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah. It's an interesting conversation about like how honest and transparent can you be? Because like if you come to someone and say, it's your fault, you underperformed, that sort of thing. I mean, what's the goal of that kind of conversation? All you're going to do is get them defensive. Like it's probably better to just say, in general, it's like, it's not because you're not a valuable person. Essentially, it's just not a good fit. It's just not a good fit. It doesn't mean invaluable or something.
The Cloudflare CEO made it even worse. He posted a tweet saying, oh, yikes, like, I'm sorry this happened this way, but then saying, like, sometimes we fire great employees too. And so you're thinking, what are you talking about? Like, why are you? No, like, I think this approach is a lot better. Just to say, no, it's a workplace reduction. It's not decided by us, and it happens to you. And I'm sorry, it sucks. Yeah. Let's see how they close this.
Don't worry, nothing's gonna be late.
Make sure you meet with Eric about PSA.
Yeah.
I know. We're not gonna say it. We're not gonna say it. We're gonna start crying, so we're not gonna say it. Okay? It's turning off. Camera's turning off. I know what you're gonna say, so you don't need to say it. And you know I'm gonna say it, so I don't need to say it. Stop! You did great. That's what I'm gonna say. You did great. You did great. You were amazing. You are amazing. Any employer would be so lucky to have you. Any managers would be so lucky to have you. And you're going to manage the hell of a team one day as well. So.
Well, thank you for everything I learned here and that you taught me.
You have me my phone, so you can just text me. I'll text you my email, but you can just text me whenever you want. You know that you have me everywhere. LinkedIn, Instagram, you have my personal phone. So please keep in touch.
I will.
Next time, good.
Okay. See you later.
See you later.
Okay.
All right. So what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of trust built up in a relationship there with the two of them. So that becomes a little, I mean, it's hard emotionally, but it becomes a little bit easier because it's not like there's some animosity there.
No, they seem to be having really good relationships. I'll always say a good negotiation is supposed to strengthen a relationship. And I mean, even after such a difficult news that you have to give this woman, it sounds like it didn't really damage the relationship she had with these two people. They still have a lot of respect for one another. They still are able to talk to one another. So that's nice,
Yeah.
I really wanted to show you guys this video because I feel like it's very different from the ones we've been seeing the past few weeks, where there is a lot of feigned emotions, pretending to be sad, or using fake reasons, and where it doesn't go so well. So I wanted to show one where it goes actually pretty well. All right. So this is it for Master Negotiators React. Thank you so much to both of you for your insights. If you're new to the show, please go follow them on LinkedIn, Giuseppe, Jeremy. Jeremy has a new book. I will link it in the description, and Giuseppe has a workshop linked in the description as well. Sorry. Stick around for the next segment. All right, so let me just share my screen and we will enter the third segment. Let me just do it this way. Third segment of Master Negotiators. So this is Master Negotiators Q&A. This is not the right window, so let me show the right window. Window, here it is. All right. There we are. So this is Master Negotiators Q&A that features seasoned negotiators answering real-world questions from Reddit. Our negotiation experts provide concrete advice on a range of topics, from managing everyday conflict to mastering complex business situations. And today I'm joined by two master negotiators. The first one is Giuseppe Conti, who is the founder of CABL, a firm that offers customized training in the field of negotiation, influence, and related areas. He has taught in all of the top 10 business schools in Europe, and he was ranked recently number 3 among the top 30 global gurus for negotiation. Hello, Giuseppe, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jen. Delighted to be with you today.
Thank you. And so Giuseppe has a workshop in June in person in Switzerland on persuasion and influence, and the link is in the description. My second guest is Jeremy Polak. He's a social organizational psychologist specializing in workplace conflict resolution and peace building. He is the author of the Conflict Resolution Playbook, and he has a new book that just came out a week ago called Peaceful Leadership. He also hosts a weekly podcast called Peace Building with Dr. Polak, where he takes live callers with workplace conflicts and coaches them towards actionable solutions. Hello, Jeremy.
Hi, Jan. How are you?
I'm doing great. And so please go buy his books on Amazon. I will link both of them in the description box. And one of you will be selected randomly if you comment during the show to have a Kindle version of his latest book for free. And so before we get into the show, why did you call your book Peaceful Leadership?
Well, we came up with a framework for leadership. There's a lot of leadership theories and models out there, and none of them really dive in through the lens of conflict management and peace building. And so we took a little bit different of approach. We looked at some of the psychological needs theories and how those relate to conflict theory. And we strung together some of the major skills and competencies that we have seen in organizations from consulting over the last decade that are just lacking in leaders that tend to create conflict. So we can build these skills up in leaders, they tend to create more peaceful organizations. And so that's what we call peaceful leadership.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have selected 3 questions that we're going to be answering today. The first one is called, Help Me Reject a Job Offer. So a company revised an offer letter, and now I don't want to join. I am not ready to switch, and even if the pay is okay, but still not much difference overall. I want to change careers, and this job is not in my field. I don't know why I applied for the job, and now I finally decided I don't want to join. And so it's a little bit of a tricky situation where somebody applied for a job, got an offer, but now they decided I'm not going. So how would you deal with that? Maybe Giuseppe, what would you say to the company?
I think, I will openly mention that, listen, I did a multi-criteria analysis. I made an analysis that I had not done before, which looked at what I really wanted and the kind of criteria that I wanted. And as a result of this analysis, I decided I'm going to continue to stay with my current employer. And
Yeah.
at least, of course, the guy clearly changed his mind. He made the company lose time and probably
Yeah.
negotiated an offer, and then they agreed to the offer, and then he realized that he wanted something else. So, of course, there is no way to make the company happy, because clearly, he wasted a lot of their time. Still, those kind of things happen, right? People for good or right reason change their mind. Eventually they can say, listen, I had a broader discussion inside my family about what was doing. Some new elements came into the decision, and we came to the conclusion that we are not going to accept the offer. This maybe
Yeah.
the job involves a relocation that is not possible for the family. Maybe the job involves heavy travel that will not be compatible with having young children, or some other element that will somehow justify. So maybe frame it as a broader family decision on this, maybe a way to justify why you first negotiated for the offer, and when you got what you wanted, you change your mind.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Giuseppe. What about you, Jeremy? How would you approach that situation?
I mean, I would just make it very simple. I would say, thank you so much for the offer. I really appreciate this opportunity. It's a great opportunity. After some further reflection, I realized that it's actually not the direction for me. I hope I didn't waste too much of your time, and I'd love to keep in touch. And that's it. I mean, so it's very simple. And I would just, I'm curious what the problem is. Like, what is the concern with just being straightforward? Like, not burning a bridge, or, I mean,
I think people don't know how to approach this situation because they feel like they, as Giuseppe was saying, they feel like they wasted a lot of people's time, that they're creating a problem, right? They feel like if they went along, then they would not create this problem, and people don't want to start problems with other people. I think that's the issue.
We're getting into codependence now.
Yeah, I mean, but it's, we hire every year at McGill for our department. We make offers to professors to join us. And we've noticed a trend that we're trying to go around, because a lot of people, when they're going up for tenure after their tenure track, their university actually encourages them to go get competing offers so that they can then renegotiate their salary once they're tenured. But it's a massive waste of time for universities like us, because we're flying them. It's thousands of dollars to fly them, host them. We organize like 12 meetings, a talk, all of that stuff. And then they just end up staying in their current university. And you're thinking, you used me as leverage. Like, this is a waste of time. So now we make exploding offers now that explode after 2 weeks, because otherwise people just waste our time too much. But I like both of your approaches. I think the one that personally I would choose would be Jeremy's, because I think, I would not try to open the door to another, like a reason why I'm not doing it. I would just not give any reason. I would just say I'm not doing it, so that they're not trying to convince me, oh no, but like you can work from home or something like that. If I really just don't want to go, then no need to give a reason.
I also, I mean, if there's some strategic concern of like, they're in my industry and they might talk and give me a bad reputation or something, I understand, maybe there's some consideration there, but otherwise, yeah, I would just say, be straightforward. I mean, here's the bottom line. We're all adults here. They're interviewing several people who if you're going to think about it as wasting time, they've wasted their time because they're not getting the offers. And so everybody's putting in the time to see if we're a good fit, and we may or may not be a good fit. So let's be adults here, and I may or may not take the offer.
But I think something that's really interesting is, and I don't know if there is any research on that, but I've noticed that if you push a piece of paper, like a contract, to people and you give them a pen, most will feel pressure to sign it. Like 80% of people will sign it anyway without reading it or anything. And so I feel that, so they sent a revised offer letter, but you haven't signed it yet. You could still say no. You can still say, I'm sorry, I'm not signing it. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's done. I'm committed. I need to sign this piece of paper.
It's a great sales technique. Send them the contract right away. Get them to sign.
No, absolutely. It's actually what motivated me to go into negotiation, because I got screwed over by that sales technique. And I was wondering, why did I sign this?
Yeah.
Like, why did I feel pressured signing this? But it's very, very common. I see this with my students as well. They just don't know what to say. They panic. And so they do what you tell them to do, you know? And I feel like this person is posting here when in reality, like, they already know what to say. It's just that they're not sure they can say it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into the second one. And so it's pretty long. And so I actually too long, didn't read. I'm going to just tell you just very quickly what this is about. So the person who finds social situations challenging and has a very small group of friends feels pressured by a friend of their brother to draw a sketch for his girlfriend. So a bunch of people, but basically somebody is pressuring them to draw a sketch. And they don't want to do it, because they feel like they're always trying to please people, like they just don't want to draw that drawing. This request came with an offer for a meal, but the person felt pressured and recalled past experience of being bullied and giving in to similar demands. So they're asking on how to assert themselves and refuse unwanted requests without feeling intimidated or succumbing to the pressure. So it's typical of a person who is, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I mean, it's negative, but like a pushover, you know, somebody that you just need to ask several times and they will end up doing it anyway. So how can somebody like this assert themselves and learn to say no? Giuseppe, do you want to go?
I think many people make the difference, are struggling to make the difference between being assertive and being aggressive. So
Right.
people don't want to be aggressive, so they ended up then not being assertive neither. And then they just ended up accepting whatever comes their way. Now, a simple way that I use to make the difference between the two is whether you're making an I statement or whether you're making a you statement. Now, if I'm telling Jeremy, you're pressing me, then of course, you know, I am talking about Jeremy. Now, much better option is than if I talk about, I don't feel like doing this. Now, if you want to go into more sophisticated kind of techniques, then something that I encourage you to look at is nonverbal communication. It is a simple technique that enables you to describe the situation, the emotion that you're experiencing, your need, and then you make a specific request. That's maybe a more elaborated way to communicate. But just remember, being assertive, talk about what you want, is not negative. It's something that you can communicate in all kinds of situations.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. How would you approach the situation?
Well, someone who is a people pleaser is motivated typically by the emotion of guilt. In other words, they feel guilt, and so the guilt is too much for them to bear, and so they end up doing the thing to relieve the guilt. And so what I would say is you need to learn to tolerate your feeling of guilt, and eventually you won't feel it anymore. So when someone says, hey, I want you to do this thing, and you say no, and you start feeling guilty because they're pressuring you. I mean, when we say pressure, what's the pressure? What pressure on what? On your feeling of what? Guilt? Feeling of being ostracized? Feeling of being left out? Feeling of being ashamed? What's the guilt? What's the pressure? So can you tolerate those feelings? Can you allow them to be there without acting on them and trying to relieve them? Just tolerate them. And eventually, if you can tolerate them, you just say, nope, I'm not doing that. Please stop asking. I'm not going to do it. That's it.
Yeah. There is a sentence that I find very compelling in what this person wrote. They said, I've been in similar situations before where I said no, but the other person became aggressive and started speaking to me rudely, even in a threatening manner. And it sounds like it's something, I can relate to that, where you feel like you're going to piss the person off and they're going to start being angry, and and it's going to become this huge thing, right?
Leave.
Yeah,
Leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is why my main advice for this person would be therapy. Like, that would be my main advice, because the main issue is like they know what to say. I don't know. I say yes, and I say she, but I don't know if it's a woman or not. But this person knows what they want to say. They want to say no, and they feel all these emotions that they want to say no. It's just that there is something inside of them that is preventing them from actually doing it. And in my opinion, this is not something you can just solve in like 2 minutes. It's something that you need to uncover with a therapist or whoever or a good friend, and to really see like, where is this coming from? Why are you so worried that people will become aggressive if you assert a boundary?
Who
But it's,
were you not allowed to
yeah,
say no to when you were growing up?
probably their parents, right? Probably it's most likely, you know, like angry parents, and that you were not really supposed to say no, to ever say no, right?
Exactly.
Somebody says being assertive does not mean simply denying the other argument, requests, or person. Absolutely. Very good. Okay, and so now we have the third one. And so here as well, I have a little bit of a too long didn't read because the person is very long-winded to explain a situation that is actually not that difficult. But I think we've all been there. And so basically just imagine a group of friends and they are saving up for a bachelor's party at Yellowstone. I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming it's a place where people go for a bachelor's party. And so there is one member that the narrator doesn't like particularly, brought the groom's expensive flight ticket for roughly $1,200 and is asking everybody to pay them back $150. And so the person who's posting this is annoyed because they bought their own ticket and it was $500. And so they're wondering, if I'm the one who has to reimburse you because you made terrible decisions, you know, it's really upsetting. I wish you had involved us in that ticket so we could have picked a better one. So they just worry about, you know, they're frustrated, they feel like they're getting scammed, and they want to find a way to address this without making it worse and kind of like ruining the bachelor party. So how would you deal with this, Giuseppe? What would you tell to that person?
Well, I will say that there is nothing wrong to ask clarification for this $1,200. Is a business class ticket? Is the ticket plus the hotel plus the limo that comes at the airport? Let's say clearly, if you paid 500 and they paid 1,200, then you wanna ask some information about, you know, help me understand, or maybe says maybe there is a mistake in the way the guy made the calculation. Maybe when he was splitting among people, he ended up, you know, getting the maths wrong, and is overcharging people. I think in a polite way, I will still ask for clarification, just to avoid that you feel that the other guy is taking advantage of you, right? You know, I think, you know, if you clarify it, then it's better for everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Giuseppe. How would you deal with it, Jeremy?
Well, yeah, I mean, number one, I mean, I guess I would assess my own financial situation. So if 150 was a big deal, then I would address it. If it wasn't a big deal, I probably just, I got to pick my battles. You know, is this worth getting into a battle around and having a weird energy at the bachelor party? So, you know, if it is a big deal though, I would say, hey, you know, you didn't check in with us and now you're expecting us to pay, or maybe you did. We all agreed that we would pay, but I didn't realize it was going to be this much. Like, explain to me what happened. You know, like how did this happen? I don't know. It's a tough one. For 150. Is it worth the battle? You got to decide.
Yeah, I mean, if it was me, like, I wouldn't really care if it's 100 or 150, so I would just pay for it. But I can understand how somebody who's a little bit strapped financially would be nervous about it. But then it means that you probably need to set some rules on how money is spent, you know, with that person, because if they have a great job and you don't, and they have a great salary and you don't, then they can't make decisions that impact you. You know, this needs to be decided. So I think maybe the way I would deal with this is I would thank the person for booking the flight, because, you know, they still did that, you know, probably out of the goodness of their heart. But I would tell them, you know, just to be careful next time, because financially I'm very short on cash these days. And so if they could check in with us, that would be much more helpful. But I think I would probably just... The only thing that worries me is that the person feels like they're getting scammed. And so I would still address it this way and strengthen the relationship with the other party, because going on a bachelor's party with somebody you feel scammed you, That doesn't sound fun. I would definitely reach out to the person. Okay, so we are exactly at an hour. I managed to keep us on time, which I'm really, really proud of. So that's it for me today. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you so much, Giuseppe, for your time, for being patient with me. Please go follow them on LinkedIn. Please go buy Jeremy's book. And Jeremy has this book, which is great. And he has another one that just came out. And so I'll update the description box so you can see it. And also, please consider attending Giuseppe's workshop. It's in June in Switzerland in person. It's on influence and persuasion. You guys, thank you so much. And everybody, I'll see you next week. Have a good one, you guys.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.